Old. Okay, great. Okay, I chose the cloud. Thank you, Crystal. Okay, so I should have introduced myself after that, but go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay. Hi, all. Thank you so much for being here. We've been talking about identity management for nearly a decade, and we're finally getting started. It feels good. So you have found yourself at the Program for Cooperative Cataloging, PCC, Entity Management Cooperative, EMCO, kickoff meeting for a community of practice dedicated to WorldCat entities through OCLC Meridian. I hope I got all your product names right here. Um, so when we were thinking about, I'll back up. So my name is Jennifer Liss, and as was announced before the recording was started, I'm a co-chair of the Identity Management Advisory Committee. My other co-chair is Crystal. We'll probably introduce her a little bit later. But this committee is charged by the PCC to launch the EMCO program. And no one that we talked to had launched a PCC program in a while. And so we got to sort of design that on our own with a little bit of guidance from policy committee. And for this first early adopters phase, we decided that we would attempt to convene communities of practice that would be at least initially organized around registries. And then those communities of practice would begin building much of the infrastructure that would take EMCO from an early adopter phase into something that was a fully fledged, ready to go, ready to run PCC program. So by infrastructure, I mean, let's assemble some basic documentation. What's already available? Where are the gaps? Can we start building those documents to help people? Maybe tools. That would be incredible if we got there in this approximately 18-month early adopter phase. But also, I think more importantly than all of those things is truly the community part. Being able to connect with one another and hear about different use cases, figure out how to make all of this metadata shareable. That's shareable metadata is the program of cooperative cataloging, right? So all of those are pretty lofty, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's all about the community, right? So that's where we're starting. So there is an agenda, which I think Anne just popped in the chat again. Hopefully you were all able to access that. At the top, you'll see a bunch of resources. Among them are the PCC Code of Conduct. Just want to draw eyeballs to that. This governs all meetings, any communication you do on listservs, etc. So please just be aware of that. If you need to share feedback about EMCO, there is a feedback form. This form routes to the IMAC committee, and so I'll see it. I'm usually able to respond within 24 hours. There is also, especially for institutional members, if you have other people at your institution who need to be added to the PCC EMCO listserv, there is a link for that too. So that is all up there for you. Reminder, if you could sign in as an attendee at the top of the agenda, that would be wonderful. Anything else I need to say at the start?
I don't think so. I think that was an excellent rally. Yay.
All right. Yeah, EMCO, we're doing it. The other thing I maybe just want to stress is that we are just starting. If it seems like not everything's in place, that's because not everything is in place. Bear with us, and we hope that you're here also to help build, right? That's the experience you're here for, is to help be a builder. So anyway, I think with that, I'm going to shut up and turn it over to Anne.
Well, and I'm just going to probably copy what Jennifer's done in other groups, but I thought I'd try to give you a little bit of a break if I could. But Crystal and Jennifer, feel free to jump in whenever. So on the agenda, it says, we talk a little bit about EMCO participants. So what does it mean to participate in this? We're going to have different meetings for there are several different registries. You can join and interact with as many as you would like to use or be involved in. But we'd, expect folks to participate, communicate any issues to the registry coordinators, or again, as Jennifer mentioned, you can add to the feedback form if they're kind of overall issues. And then maintain internal documentation, which I think will be a lot of can be kind of fun, early, pieces of the puzzle as we're figuring things out. But to gain access to the drive, you can add your name to the roster, and what would be helpful is if you're able to use, I think, an email address or Gmail, Google account that's not associated with your institution, because Jennifer has mentioned, and I think others, you might lose access to that if you move to another institution, and it can be hard to regain access, remove yourself, especially if you own documents. That can become kind of an adventure. So does that cover that point, Jennifer, that you've mentioned in a couple minutes? Okay. We'd like to think about what statistics are meaningful in this context. So we'll be thinking of ways to report statistics to, again, the coordinator, which we'll talk about in just a second. Everyone's responsible for, maintaining a healthy, happy community. Well, happy, content community. So adhering to the code of conduct. And then as we're working on this, I imagine a number of us will be, keeping track of the different work that we're doing, and probably including descriptions of that, in our Google Drive. Now, we also need to have some coordinators. So these are folks who would facilitate communication, probably schedule some of the meetings within the community of practice. And then the coordinators will also meet across, with one another. And I think the intention is, yes, with IMAC as well, so that there is sort of like a broad view. And while we know there are things that will be happening, that are different between the different registries for a variety of reasons, there are some ideas that what can we do in common, or just think more broadly about the effort. So the coordinators will do that about 2 to 4 times a year. They'll be tracking action items, collecting statistics, and also contributing to, the community according to the code of conduct. So the way by which these coordinators get selected is up to each of the groups. So for example, Wikidata is quite a large group. They, I think, intend to put together like a voting, like a poll, using Google Forms and things like that. So it could be something like that. It could be as informal as, with a smaller group, a few people raise their hands and we, figure out who's going to do the term. But the decision on how and who, again, we want to make sure that everyone's included, even those who can't make the live meetings. So we'll continue those conversations on a given channel, which takes us to some of these deliverables. So one of the first things that we need to do, each of the community practice needs to do, is identify the coordinators. We're going to post these videos, some of them have been posted. Is it the PCC YouTube channel or?
Yes.
Okay. And that message will go out on the EMCO listserv. So if you aren't able to get access to the EMCO listserv, there's that link in the notes document, and then I'll also just post it here in chat. you don't have that open. And that's the way that we'll distribute, like, hey, all these videos have been posted, things like that. Then I think what will be important is that there's a method of communication for each of the communities of practice. Now, I know that for, was it Wikidata or ISNI, they were talking about a listserv. I don't know, were they talking about the EMCO listserv or creating like a separate list?
So ISNI wanted, actually what they wanted to do was reuse the list that was at Columbia, which was for the PCC pilot, but I'm not
Oh,
sure that's going
okay.
to work out. We'll see. I
Okay.
have a question out to colleagues there. Anyway, they want a listserv. We'll find
Sure.
one,
Okay.
one way or another.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there will be some method for communication in the beginning. It might just be, probably be just a group email. If that ends up working, cool. If not, we can get on, folks could get on Slack or whatever is useful for the group. Again, this is to be decided, by the communities. We'd like a cadence. I think, recommendation is no less than, wait, how have you framed this? Once a month-ish or every couple of months. I think, again, it's up to the activities of the group, the capacity of the group, but enough that we can achieve the different, deliverables and goals over a period of time. Also thinking about the statistics that will be reported. So what do statistics mean in this, in a world of entity management, additions, edits? Do we characterize the usage? I think there was a good question or point about what's meaningful in the context of this group, and then could be meaningful to an institution. So like what story does this tell an institution as well? So I think that'll be a really good topic of conversation of the group. Early on and throughout. And then thinking about what documentation already exists, including best practice recommendations, other things, and in doing so, probably identifying what gaps are there as well. And so what kinds of things might need to be created as part of the group. So that's just some kind of super basic outline of what participation looks like, the role of coordinators. There's also, again, up to the group is how many and how long folks might serve. There's been what has worked well for groups a number of us have been on in the past is like co-chairs, maybe staggered terms. So someone, does 2 years and the person does one, and you have some continuity of institution or like memory over time. So that's some of the basic overview, and then I'm sure that we also will have other questions specific to using WorldCat entities, accessing these kinds of things too, but overall that's what's going on. So thoughts and questions about any of that before we kind of like just move into discussion land? Or Jennifer, did I miss anything? I need a
No, I think you covered it all. We'll just wait and see if someone has a question about anything or any ideas about how to move forward with decisions.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking is because this group is a little smaller, if folks are comfortable, introducing themselves either on mic or in the chat, I think it would be great to, see who's all around, what maybe what role you're in, what context you're interested in using entities like general, so in the EMCO sense, and then thought specifically around like say WorldCat Entities. But I just kind of wanted to, even if you're here to lurk for this particular one, I know a number of folks are attending some of these, you know, throughout the week to see what they might be interested in or what different groups are looking at. I think we have enough, you know, people and time if folks do want to introduce themselves.
So if you want to introduce on mic, you could maybe raise your hand and then others could just throw into chat if you're more comfortable doing chat. Might be one way to do it. At yesterday's meeting, I put some poor soul on the spot. They were in their car on the phone. I was like, I'm so sorry. I failed.
Hi, Ruth.
I'll put myself on the spot while people are typing. I'm at Penn State. I do not believe we have Meridian, and I do not believe we have the budget to necessarily get Meridian. But what I'm interested in is we do Wikidata stuff, and so understanding the WorldCat entities so that I understand them better for when we reuse them, for example, for Wikidata, understanding the nature of what's there and how people may be enhancing it or the like, just getting a better picture of them. So I don't know if I will be lurking here forever or just lurking for a handful of meetings, feel like I'm got a decent idea and bounce. Also, I'm leading a library systems migration, so I may bounce because of capacity.
This is a great time to mention that EMCO does not have production expectations, unlike other PCC programs. We're not looking for number of records or something. So if you have to come and go, that seems just fine. It's very reasonable. Crystal.
I can help break the ice. I'm Crystal. I'm a co-chair of IMAC, and I'm here to lurk as a person who's helping with EMCO stuff. And also, the University of Washington is not in a position to be able to subscribe to Meridian at this time because of money, but we are OCLC users. And so we are also users of WorldCat entities because those are just in there. And so I'm interested in knowing more about being a consumer of these entities and what non-subscribers of Meridian can do about them and what we can't do about them. And I'm also similarly to Ruth, interested in using them from a Wikidata perspective.
Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim Thompson. I am the manager of the Metadata Services Unit at Yale, and I see I'm here with a couple of colleagues from other departments and technical services at Yale. Like Ruth, we're also in the midst of a systems migration and also looking at, so we're migrating to Alma, but we're looking at adopting Connection as our primary platform for original cataloging. And so just exploring the possibilities there. I haven't heard about whether or not we'll be subscribing to Meridian specifically, but we had a demo recently, which Anne and Jeff Mixter were kind enough to give us, and it was certainly, caught my attention. So just here to learn more and be more prepared to explore the possibilities.
Maybe I'll take over. I'm Dominique Bourassa, and I'm here with Tim and Rowena Green. And as he said, we're exploring Meridian. So I'm an ECO contributor, and for me, it's to know, I'm kind of curious to know what would I do in ECO versus what would I do in Meridian, because I don't want to do the job twice. And I really like NACO, so it brings a lot of questions that we could answer maybe, and maybe we could have staff who don't do authority now, doing basic authority in Meridian. And later on, the catalogers, the metadata staff could go and maybe create an ECO record. So it brings a lot of questions and for us to explore if ever we are allowed to, if ever Yale decides to put the money on Meridian. So we still don't know how much it costs. And Tim and Rowena and I, we don't have any power of buying into that. Thank you.
Thanks. And thanks so much for everyone who's introduced themselves in the chat as well. And I think Crystal and others have brought up some good points about, you know, without, if folks don't have access to Meridian, there's still kind of entities that exist in the world. And so what kind of things do we need to think about as we're working across these different registries? That's another part of EMCO that I'm super excited about. Like Crystal's work with the LC bot, I think, was it the LC bot?
LCCN bot.
LCCN bot surfaced some really, like, I mean, I'll call them interesting issues, but they're like duplicates or splits or things like that. You know, as we live in a more connected, linked world, the effects are, you know, downstream, overstream, you know, throughout. And so I think that'll be another, you know, exploration or area to explore, especially if we'll be making connections between things too. So. Cool. Well, thanks, folks. I think a couple things to think about is, again, what will be sort of the best mechanism for communication. If it sounds like we've got some questions and interest, but to keep on forward, we'll want to have at least one person who's able to work in the kind of role of coordinator. So we don't have to identify that right now, but think about it. If this is a group that you want to focus on, you don't have to solve every problem, but I think it will be helping a lot with you know, facilitating meetings, making sure notes are taken and posted, and then working across the other groups as well. So have folks, at least here, is there a particular selection mechanism that you've liked for coordinators on different groups that you've worked on, or an approach that you'd like to take? For that, or for kind of follow-up communication too, I think that would be pretty important. Slash, I think this is open discussion now, so what other, you know, questions, ideas, challenges that would be useful to talk through in this first meeting?
Is there any problem that you would love for EMCO to help you solve? Hey, Sophia.
Hey, sorry. I apologize for being called whatever. I jumped from the other meeting and didn't realize that it would be something else. Anyway, so I have a very basic suggestion, and perhaps it's a silly suggestion, but maybe since many of us here, it seems, don't have access to Meridian, but very curious about how it would work with other ecosystems like Alma and OCLC Connection and WorldCat. It would really be nice if maybe we could have not necessarily a demonstration, but presentation from OCLC on their vision, what kind of workflows they envision with that thing and why they have decided to create their own separate thing versus getting identities from many other places that already exist. I know it will be helpful for me, so maybe it will be helpful for other people as well. And I'm from Emory University in Atlanta.
I actually work remotely for OCLC and I'm in Atlanta, so I'm down the street from you. Drive past there all the time. No, that's really a good idea, and I think could be something that we could do in the first meeting. And I
Oh, and you somehow muted yourself.
oopsies, I meant to go to another window. If there are folks who kind of are interested in a deep dive, about their particular collection, or want to talk about like trial period access or something like that, you could get in touch with me and we could, do that outside of the, part here. But I think I'd be happy in the, in the context of this group too, to kind of give it some basic info or demo and how folks could access WorldCat entities data. So WorldCat entity data, at the end of that URI that you see in the catalog records, that can be dereferenced. So if folks, are using a local platform or a vendor any vendor platform, you can get at the data at the end of those URIs. And if you have a WizKey, a free WizKey, then you can, also access some information as well. So I think Ruth mentioned a little bit about Ruth and Crystal. You talked a little bit about like the connection, where data could be used or reused or accessed. That's one. Hey, Nan.
Hi, Anne. Hello again. So we don't have a Meridian subscription. I think it'll be a while before we would even think about it. But of course, I'm very interested in WorldCat entities and what OCLC is doing to populate WorldCat entities into WorldCat. So yeah, if this is a good channel to sort of learn about what OCLC is doing, that would be a really good reason for me to stay interested and follow along and get up early more often.
Yeah, we can also, like, depending on who all is interested, coordinating things like that, maybe alternate times that work for. We had a few people interested in Hong Kong, Europe, various other places, South Africa, and not quite able to get the whole span of the world's times. So, maybe it'll end up later. But absolutely, yeah, definitely. I think, like, again, this is a PCC EMCO land. I am a librarian in this space. So aside from being in OCLC, I was like a metadata librarian for a long time. And so I come to this as a librarian and want to be able to support and hear from folks about what they're seeing, how these are useful, what would make it more useful. I think in some conversation, folks talked about, hey, could we expect a minimum of X data from, WorldCat entities in terms of when people were creating an entity description. So that kind of feedback, I think, would be helpful for those Meridian users, and folks using entity data. So I think this would be one really great way certainly for OCLC to keep folks updated on what we're doing and people to directly be able to give, feedback or come up with general best practices or expectations too. And we can also help with some statistics too, if that's. Jennifer, thank you. That was a really helpful question. Anything else folks would like to see out of EMCO, generally? Hey, Misty.
Hi, so I'm hoping that my neighbors don't start jackhammering again. But I'm kind of interested in, like I did I saw the spiel for Meridian when OCLC brought it out, and it was interesting and I thought it looked great, but it's not as I don't know, regimented, I guess is maybe a word I would use. Like it doesn't have as much like comparing it to NACO maybe, it just doesn't have the just quite the requirements that NACO does. And I'm kind of curious whether that'll be something that is developed or they're happy with the way that is, or kind of that kind of thing. So that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, I think that's really kind of helpful and I think perfect for the discussion of EMCO overall, in terms of, expectations or best practices. And I think that's where, in some other registries, there are, developed best practices. I'd say WorldCat Entities and Meridian is in its early stages. And so we really, now from the OCLC perspective, wanted to kind of collaborate with the community and see what was, folks were, expecting, kind of help look to folks to help build best practices and expectations around things. But yet they're, by definition, it doesn't have those, same requirements. And I don't think we'd expect the exact same thing, but I do think that some guiding best practices would be cool to come up with in this context too.
Yeah, I think in a way, it's a good idea that it is not as structured as NACO, because that's one thing that makes it difficult for people to join NACO, because there's all these requirements. But at the same time, unlike Wikidata, that anybody can go in and mess up the data or do something about the data, it is a little more, it is more protected because not everybody can even afford to use the system. So it creates there's some good part and some, less good part. The money part is a big problem. That some people, are already complaining they can't even afford to buy RDAs, the RDA toolkit. So then that's something else they would have to buy to participate in. But, it's a good thing to explore. And I like that part of it is automated, like those work. But then at the same time, I go in and I go, oh gosh, there's like 3 entities from this work, and I know it's really just one work. So how do you work in this kind of system that's partly automated or not, and partly not? So I think that will be interesting to see.
Yeah, and that's something I'm excited about too, is especially, there's going to be a part of this that is truly WorldCat entities users. So in the catalog data, what are we seeing? What is working? What is frustrating? Things like that. So this is, I think, a space for some of that conversation too, as we start, see identifiers, and through this group, like our, creating and adding identifiers, what kinds of things are we going to be looking at and dealing with? So
are you thinking, like in some of the registries, people can create can kind of batch import a bunch of entities if they know they're not there, and have ways to check to see if they're there? Are you thinking about, like, I'm thinking, okay, we have a bunch of new students, we want to create entities for all of those. Is there a way, and we know they have not published before, or can we just batch at the same time as we do dissertations, for example? That might be something to look into.
Yeah, there are some APIs that help with that functionality, because we certainly now from in OCLC land don't want folks to have to do that by hand, thousands of things. So, and Crystal, yeah, I saw you had your hand raised. I don't know if you want to just have that comment in the chat, or if you want to talk about it too.
Oh, I was just wanting to mention that we've got the the benefits of controlled entry and training, but then also, our training has been slipping a little over the last number of years as we've gotten more and more work and fewer resources and catalogers to do that work. And, places like Wikidata where it's open, there's many users freely accessing this system, and like, because it's open, there's lots of people successfully monitoring changes and fixing mistakes. And when systems are closed, those barriers to entry create bottlenecks that make it more difficult to keep up with errors. So maybe something like EMCO could help us to address that with things like Meridian, and help us to create workflows so that we can all, navigate that a little bit better for all of our systems that have different sorts of paths to entry and to fixing mistakes, because mistakes happen in all of our systems, no matter who's creating the data. And, if we can't fix them, then that's an issue.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I've thrown a couple of random thoughts there. Yeah, the fact that OCLC is involved with this is, I think, also a reason to be interested, because OCLC, it is made up of people who know our work. And so I think there's sort of a more concern with how the work gets done than with some of the commercial parties. Wikidata, of course, is also full of enthusiasts and specialists. I was going to say, I was in a previous life, I was involved in a very interesting project by OCLC, forgetting what they called it now. I don't even know if the name was official, but involved working with some libraries to look at their use cases for entity description, and then sort of like doing some modeling more or less on the fly. And that was interesting in a lot of ways. And I was hoping we wouldn't be realistic to do that in a sort of like full-blown production environment. But I'd be interested in some of those sorts of conversations could happen in a group like this one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing, you know, the WorldCat entity data is structured using the WorldCat ontology, which, you know, was based on a lot of, you know, description needs for entities. But I could see also in this group, if folks also see gaps in that, in what they might need to describe an entity or something specific to a workflow, like if, you know, you mentioned students. So if there's something critical to a workflow around theses and dissertations, is there maybe a property that would be super helpful and relevant for a workflow, but is currently missing from the ontology? I think out of this group could come some ideas or needs like that could help kind of advocate for that. So speaking of kind of staying in the loop, staying in touch, of this group, oh, Paula.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I know in the ideal, everything is open, but in our situation, actually being completely open was an issue. Because we're a federal library and we have a lot of security policies and privacy policies. So for us, Meridian actually had an advantage in being more closed. So I just wanted to throw that comment in there. Thanks.
Yeah, I think what's cool about EMCO is that kind of where it makes sense for folks to work can be an area of focus. And then overall, we can be thinking about entity management again in this context of libraries, archives, bibliographic data, beyond, things like that. Oh, Crystal, no, the entity data is not closed. So I don't know. We are recording, so I don't know, Paul, if you wanted to talk more about that or all those requirements.
Oh, sure. So we have big concerns about privacy, especially in our current environment. Not wanting to out people or that kind of stuff. So that kind of information we are concerned about others adding. And so having a little more control of what goes in those records was a big deal for us. Did that answer your question? Okay. And then also just not being able to put too many pieces of information together to identify and locate a person was another concern.
So after this meeting, how would folks like to stay in touch, at least in the kind of near term? Do we, you know, I think again, I could probably pull up I honestly haven't taken a look at the roster. But I could go from who's indicated interest on the initial form, and broadcast it on the EMCO list if, you know, somebody wants to be added. But should we just do like group email for now until we have input from others? Or is there a preferred way that folks like to interact again, like Slack, Discord, something else? You know, there are probably new things out there that I'm not part of.
People use Discord for work.
I don't.
Okay.
That
That's my gaming life. I'm
I
like,
was
wait,
gonna say,
what?
that's my other space. Like,
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm with you, but I'm like, that's not my workspace.
yeah.
I've heard of students using it for more professional things
Wow.
lately. So I think
Okay.
the kids are doing it more
Kids
and
are-
more.
Well, I'm not a kid, so here we go.
Yeah.
I see one vote for email in chat.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rowena. Maybe that's sufficient for now.
Yeah, so I will,
So I'll just say that when I push out well, just like you all saw today, maybe, if you're on the listserv for EMCO, the recording and the notes will go to all of EMCO, and that helps everyone who maybe missed out, or maybe they're just curious. A lot of us are here because we're just curious. That's fine, like, that's great. But maybe they'll want to join because of something we said today, like, oh, actually, that is my use case. I didn't think this group was for me. I want to get involved. So another option is we just actually keep it more open for now. And then as the group kind of consolidates, then you identify your communication for this community. I think it's okay, at least for the smaller groups at first, to just use the EMCO list. That's fine. And then you can decide what you need to do.
okay, yeah, I was also just thinking like, you know, group email with 20 emails. That's a reply all
Oh, like,
situation.
okay, yeah, that too.
Like literally
I got you.
as though I'm sending, you know, the
Yeah,
monthly report or whatever.
you're right.
So we could try that.
Yeah.
Cool.
There
Yeah.
is that roster, if I'll just, some people came in late, so just mention again that in the agenda, we do have a link to, it's under agenda number item 1, the EMCO-WorldCat Entities CoP roster. If your email is there, and that mostly gets you access to the Google Drive, but it'll also kind of register your interest in being a member of this community of practice that will make sure you don't get missed in those communications.
Yeah, so I think what any other thoughts about the group or ideas that you've had as others have talked about kind of what they would hope to achieve or look, you know, to get out of, you know, this particular group, or questions? Okay, that's
Oh,
what I thought,
yeah.
Non.
Passage,
Project
right, yeah.
Passage.
Yep.
And the modeling that was done as part of Project Passage was actually kind of form part of the basis of the WorldCat ontology. And then also with the group that came together for the Shared Entity Management Infrastructure Project, that helped build on to what did eventually, we had to name it something. So the WorldCat ontology. So cool. So I will kind of at least on the front end help with, you know, continuing conversation, but look to have a coordinator or coordinators of this group, which again can be folks that use Meridian or like others have mentioned, have a vested interest in it working and things like that. and what's needed between registries and things like that. So yeah, I will send something out to this group, I think once the video has been posted, to see if others have interest as well. And then, you know, if you did want to talk more specifically about like Meridian, your use case, access, whatever, you can get in touch. Oh, I don't know if people know my email address. You can get in touch with me or have questions about this too. I mean, you can email me, Jennifer, Crystal, or that, again, that link, there's like that feedback link in the on a page here. So. Cool.
Well, thanks, Anne, for walking us through this.
Yes.
And then mostly thank you all for being
Yeah, thank you for
interested and
joining. Yeah.
excited, sharing your use cases. I'm really excited to see where we go. I think we're really good at the data. We need to start doing the linking. Right. This is what we're here for. So, all right.
Yeah, I'll stop the recording.